Hello YouTube, Ace here. Today I'm going to have a look at the Battlefield series and how it's fallen downhill over the past few years. Now you'll notice in the background I'm playing a mod called Forgotten Hope. It's a mod for Battlefield 1942. I highly recommend it, and the original Battlefield 1942, which is by the way free. Try it out. This map here is a map called Fall Gelb. It's a 1940 scenario between France and Germany, and I'm playing as the French. Now, let's get back on topic, though, and talk about the Battlefield series in general. So, you've likely heard that the Battlefield series has gone downhill for the past few years. Battlefield 4 was released in absolutely disastrous state, and after that was unplayable for months, and after that we've had Battlefield Hardline relatively recently. That is, a lot of people would say it's very underwhelming. It's a lot of people have argued that it is a reskinning of Battlefield 4, basically. That very little work went into it, and because it's a cops and robbers game rather than a military set game, that a lot of the vehicles are, well, just vehicles. They're not really armed or anything like that, and it really takes away from the experience. And I would have to agree on them with this. But that's not the only thing that's caused this series to go downhill. In fact, I'm going to dive right into that as well. I would say that the series has been going downhill since Battlefield 3, and here is why. But let's talk about what made Battlefield series great to begin with. See, Battlefield was all been about a massive 64-player battles on enormous maps where you could do everything from driving tanks, flying airplanes, and even sailing ships, or just going on foot as an infantryman. It is one of the few genuinely vehicular-focused games, and it has certainly gotten a well-rounded reputation for it. Now, the things that made it stand out from its contemporaries, even to this day, with the exception of Star Wars Battlefront, is the fact that when it originally came out, both right up into 2142, which was the fourth game of the series, actually technically the fifth game of the series. It was focused around the single-player experience, which is not okay. It was actually multiplayer focused, but let's talk about the single-player experience, because in the old Battlefield games, single-player experience was essentially a skirmish mode where you could, instead of playing against real-life people, you could play against bots and AI on the map and do all the things that you could expect to do in this multiplayer. Now, this is actually a pretty brilliant idea for the series. It allows you to play the game using the same basic rules without having to do extra scripting or anything like that that could cause a single-player experience to become buggy or something along those lines. Which is later what we ended up seeing with the later Battlefield games when they tried to actually add linear campaigns, which is absolutely ridiculous for this series. Now, the purpose of a single-player campaign, if you're going to do it for a game like this, should be to showcase what all you get to do in this game. Something you don't want to do is make it a completely boring experience. A good example of this would be Battlefield 3. You hardly ever got to do anything really that interesting in Battlefield 3 single player. One of the very few notable moments was when you got to be in an aircraft, but this turned into a rail shooter section, which completely undermined the whole point of it. But if you ask me, I'd say they should have sticked with the skirmish mode, and aside from the reason that it would allow you to actually see what you can do with this game. Another reason is because, again, the scripting can get very buggy at times, and in fact, Battlefield 4's single player, I've shown a video of it already. It was absolutely disastrous because of how they had to script it. If they hadn't had to do that, it would have hands down been a much better game in the single player section anyways. Now, let's talk about something else that they did that completely undermined the single player, and this has been going on since Battlefield 2, which was technically the third game in the series. In the original games, you could go up to full 64 players, and you could do up to the full-sized maps on the single player. In Battlefield 2, they changed this all to make it so that you could only have 16 players in the single player and only have the smallest maps into play, unless you, of course, forcing you to use multiplayer if you wanted the full experience, or using mods. There are mods indeed that actually fix all that, but it is something that should be certainly be mentioned. And going on the subject, let's talk about mods. Now, the Battlefield series, right up into 2142, did have decent mod support, and it had a large selection of mods. There's over 100 mods on Battlefield 1942 alone. And this has led the game to have a very, very long lifespan. comparatively, with Battlefield 3, the first of the genuine mainline Battlefield releases, they completely took out mod support. Now you can debate whoever was responsible for all these bad decisions, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and blame EA. Because everything that seemed to have gone wrong for the series has gone wrong under EA's watch. And I have a sinking suspicion that is how we wound up with a completely linear campaign mode and absolute lack of mod support and a lot of the features cut out that made the game actually pretty good. Hopefully they learn, with Hardline and Battlefield 4, or at some point, they'll end up learning their lesson and adding in a single-player skirmish mode, which they should have been doing ever since, and they should also re-include mod support at some point. Hopefully that these sorts of things happen, and also hopefully they could also make sure that their games are never buggy on release. But then again, though, this is the Battlefield series, it has always been buggy on release, and I think we all know this. I think this is pretty much about all I needed to say about this. Leave some comments when you see this. Hopefully we can have an interesting discussion about this. So I hope to see you guys again soon. Ace out.